Hey, I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. I'm not sure how you found us, but I want to let you know that we have made it as easy as possible for you to find, follow, and share this podcast with as many people as possible. All you have to do is type in Community Solutions, and we're in the Apple iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, we're on Spotify, and as usual, you can find it out on YouTube or by going directly to podbabble.com, the great podcast network that we're part of. So go out there and go nuts, because the more that you share this information, the greater opportunity that you have to change your community. So thank you again for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
Oh, but ain't that America for you and me? Ain't that America something to see, baby? Ain't that America home of the free? Yeah, little pink houses for you and me. This is the Community Solutions Podcast.
A rarity here on Community Solutions Radio Podcast. Mm-hmm. I've heard that, you always stump me with whatever words that you do to a song.
Right.
I know that one.
You know that one?
Yeah, it's that Cougar guy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, John Cougar Mellencamp,
that's
John
it.
Mellencamp,
Okay.
as he likes to be called.
I don't know the name of the song, but...
Pink Houses.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, you said that.
Yeah, I did. Yep. That's the nice thing about a chorus. They usually bring in the title of the tune. Not always, but it's a good guess. But for anyone who is stumped at all of that, what I feel is one of the best podcast themed playlists in all of the world. Go out to Spotify.
Wow, that's a big statement.
That is a big statement for the Community Solutions Music from the Podcast playlist, and you can hear all of the music that we put out there every week.
It's amazing. I thought I was the reason everyone was tuning in. I guess it's our music.
Maybe. Well, the playlist is different than the podcast. We need people to listen to that too.
All right,
so, all right,
I guess.
Yeah.
One of your things. I still have a tape player and a record player. What do I know?
I have a record player. That's actually back in. You've waited long enough now that
That's
it's good.
true. I've noticed a vinyl comeback.
Yes.
Now, what's up with that? Does it just sound better, or?
Oh, yes. It's much warmer.
Oh, okay. You have the 15, the 30, the 45. They still have that?
Yeah.
I mean, my parents.
I don't
remember
think
my
they
parents playing Thriller on the one in our living room back in the early 80s.
I think it's pretty much the 33s right now. I don't think they do much with the 45s anymore. But
I don't know what that stands for. I just remember that.
Well, revolutions per minute. So 45 would play faster because it's usually just a single on each side, and 33 and a third actually then would be slower. That's for your LPs. And then they also had 16, which were big honking old records. But yeah,
I learned something new every day on this show, everyone. So there, I've learned my record speed there.
Well,
and I don't mean running. I mean record speed.
Yeah, we all know that stopwatches don't go that high.
Yeah.
So
Last time I ran, it was for a cheeseburger.
Last time I ran, it was because of my nose. I had a cold.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyhow.
Let's get to what we came here for today. We came here to talk about the Home Life and Family Expo that's going to be held in Crystal, Minnesota. That is coming on the 28th
of
April, yes. Just a short time away at the Crystal Community Center from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and it is free. Backers of this great extravaganza are the City of Crystal, whom we're big fans of at this point in time, the Robbinsdale School District, Tom Slepsky from Remax Results, Kim Edwards from Core Trust Bank, the Crystal Business Association, Bryce Garns from Farmers Insurance, and the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. So we have Tom and Kim here with us today. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is good to have you. On this show, we like to talk about solutions. I mean, that's why we call ourselves Community Solutions. Sometimes we just rail against the things that other cities do, but once in a great while, we like to actually talk about things that are happening that are good, that we think make a community better. And I think that Andrew and I both think that this expo is a great opportunity for people to explore the city of Crystal, which, as I mentioned, we're pretty happy with a lot of the things that they have done over the last 4 years. And
plus, it'll always be my hometown.
Well, there is that, and I'm a resident as well as a homeowner for 19 years.
Right. I'm waiting for them to put my name on the City of Crystal thing on County Road, that I lived there as my hometown.
Well, I still live there, so you'll have to have that battle with me, I guess, until otherwise noted. Anyways, thank you guys for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the expo, whose brainchild it was? Fill us in.
Well, Tom and I think, came up with the idea jointly. Really, what the expo is about is to showcase the city of Crystal and the opportunity for people that are find themselves really not able to perhaps purchase a home or haven't really explored the opportunities that a place like Crystal offers. Crystal offers pretty much a small town environment right in the heart of the city, with the main streets, the local shopping, the great school district. It's just it's kind of a undiscovered gem, if you will, in the metro. In fact, the city of Crystal views themselves as being, quote unquote, under the radar as people look to perhaps move out of a rental situation and own a single family home.
And I think what you said at the very beginning, the name of your show is Community Solutions. This is a solution for those people that are looking for affordable homes in the metro area that they can still commute to work in different parts of the city.
I'd like to just talk about that for a moment. This just kind of came to me now, sorry. But there's a lot of talk about affordable housing. The Met Council is always telling us we need more affordable housing, more affordable housing, more affordable housing. And we need people for the very bottom of the spectrum, and I think that we provide for that fairly well. There's always housing up at the top, and they can afford to have more built, but I think sometimes it's the first-time home buyer or new households or things like that sometimes get overlooked, and that market can kind of fluctuate based on where people are moving from and to. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. Is the affordable home, it all depends what you want for an affordable home. It's simply, is it the price? Is it the features of a home? Those are all the things that go into consideration to determine what type of home either one of you would want or live in.
And, additionally, when you think about affordable housing, that's different for every family. And really the way that process starts is you dictate what it is that you're comfortable with for your housing expense. And we turn around and translate that into the home that you can buy. And just for a majority of families, especially quote unquote new households, that really dictates perhaps a lower payment. And what you're going to find in communities like Crystal and other first string or nearby suburbs is that it's really, for most of those families, it's less than what it is that they're actually paying for rent today, especially if they're living in the city or looking in the city or some of the better known suburbs. They're paying far more in rent for what it is they could actually own a single family home for in Crystal.
So my wife and I renting in Plymouth right now are probably getting getting the shaft. Yeah. Love looking at Medicine Lake, but
no, because that Kim and I are going to get you with you after the show.
Oh, that's right. I'm going to get cornered up here pretty soon.
Yeah, you're going to be my neighbor again pretty soon.
No. Then I'm going to definitely hit my 5-wood into your front yard. Now, you guys touched on like the uniqueness of Crystal. I want to kind of get into, you just mentioned real quick, Kim, about the school district and things like that, affordability. Is that something that is just not known to buyers, or is that something people are going where the trendy homes are? I mean, why has Crystal fallen? Is there a reason it's fallen under the radar, or is...
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. When you think of trendy, I mean, and this is perhaps a marketing term, but there's basically what's known as the late majority, and they tend to follow the herd, so to speak, right? It's and the opportunity that communities like Crystal really represent, in additional to affordable housing, is that it's kind of like being at the crest of the wave. In other words, as people do discover that opportunity, it's going to become more and more desirable for other people as they try to duplicate what the new households that establish themselves in Crystal are going to present. I mean, it's just as they take advantage of those opportunities, values will rise, and it's a rising tide lifts all ships scenario.
Well, the other thing to take in consideration is simply this, that if you consider that a lot of people consider Maple Grove, but you're looking at, as I mentioned earlier, that the average price in Maple Grove, average, is $275. In Crystal, it's a little over $202,000. So when you talk about affordable housing, first-tier suburbs like Crystal, Robbinsdale have that already. You might not have that in Maple Grove, but you can certainly find it in Crystal, and a lot of people don't know that.
Now, let me ask just a backwards question. When you guys try to, buying a home, me growing up in Crystal, living there for a long time, not living there anymore, but that was always the place I wanted to be. It's my hometown; it always will be. I'm not there right now for other reasons, but do people, when they buy a home, are they looking to buy a home for a certain price or in a certain area? Or, I mean, how's the approach usually happen?
Well, there's really a lot of reasons for that. So somebody comes to me and said that they're interested in buying a home. The first thing we'll do is sit down and have you been pre-qualified? You know what you can afford for a home. You know what your payments are going to be. Before we can even take another step, we need to establish what that is going to be. That's why Kim is involved, that he can help to do that. So therefore, then once that's established, then the other questions come up. How many bedrooms do you need? How many baths? How many cars? Garages? Do you need a fenced yard? All those things to come in consideration. And there's a lot more to it. A lot of people, as the population has moving further and further out, at some point you realize maybe we're too far out. Maybe the price you pay for gas to live in Elk River, good communities, but if you work downtown, maybe the price that you don't want to commute, maybe you don't want to get on 94 with the traffic problem. Maybe you want some buses. There's a lot of reasons for a first-tier suburb. There's a lot of reasons for out further, too. It's all depending on family, on your particular situation.
And that Tom brings up a great point. Everybody's priorities are going to be different, right? And so everybody's going to have to prioritize their priorities, if you will. Number one, what's the most important thing for you and your family, or you and your household? What's the second most important thing? What's the third most important thing? And for some families, it may be a more rural environment, or for other people, it might be a more trendy environment, and for other people, it might be more convenience to everything that the metropolitan area offers. It might be having that small town feel, that sense of belonging as part of a community, based upon their traditional vision of a community. So everybody's just going to be different, and not everybody's going to want to be in an inner ring suburb. And their priority might be to sacrifice or do whatever it is they have to do to be farther out. Other people may want to be downtown. But and so for a lot of them, Crystal actually might be a stepping stone, a necessary stepping stone to achieve, what it is that their top priority is. Not everybody's blessed enough to be able to just, have everything that they want, especially if it's their first home.
And the other thing to keep in consideration as far as priorities go, and I'll direct it right at you, Andrew.
Oh, boy.
Is your priorities the same as Molly? Basically, yes.
Probably. I hope. Usually my priorities, she tells me what they are.
I like that you're in the
Happy
hot seat.
wife,
That's
happy
good.
life, yeah.
Absolutely. But
I love her, no doubt about it.
But
It's
you
okay.
might want something slightly different than hers. It's part of my job to have you both focused to get your priorities between you straight so that you can start looking for a house, so that you're not wanting to be Crystal and all of a sudden your wife wants to be in Aiken, Minnesota.
We want to be in both places, to be honest.
We can do that for you.
Well, and you had kind of mentioned when we were talking off air that Crystal seems to bring a lot of that together. In fact, what was it that you had said to me specifically about how the character of Crystal it's a great settling point?
Well, it's affordable suburban living with a small town feel and big city access. Basically, what that means is if you like the downtown lifestyle or work downtown, Crystal is only 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away. By automobile, bus is a little bit more, and you guys probably have a better handle on this than me, but when light rail comes through, if it does, how long a commute will it be from Crystal to downtown?
Twice what it is now. Oh, sorry.
Well, it depends in Crystal where you live, too. I mean, that would be a factor, too. But, yeah, so it does offer that, and there probably aren't many cities that do. I used to work in Minneapolis. And
Yeah,
it was,
I used to once upon a time.
Yeah, it was a very convenient drive for me. Sometimes I took, I could take 100 to 394 to Dunwoody back in the day, and then I could go by the hospital, and there were a couple different ways to go. So it was not far. Had I lived in Elk River, I would have never driven to Minneapolis. I'll be blunt, I never would have driven that far.
But some do.
Yeah, and I mean, I think spending 2 or 3 hours in the car in the day is, I think for a lot of people, is a big negative. I know it is for me. If I'm not driving to a lake, okay, then I don't want to spend 3 hours in the car.
But that's a Minnesota thing with 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour commute. But if you go to other cities, east or west coast, 2 or 3 hours, that's normal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
Or Chicago.
well, that's true. It can be a very long commute. From where Crystal's at. I mean, there's other communities there around Crystal, and we've talked about many of them here on this program and otherwise. And just from what you mentioned about it having like a centrality, a closeness to downtown, but yet being affordable. I mean, if you go out about the same distance, I mean, anywhere, you're not going to find the same home prices, right? I mean, they're all not as affordable, right?
Well, that's true. New Hope, as an example, our next community over. Mm-hmm. I don't have their average sale price with me, but they're a little bit more expensive. Crystal, Robbinsdale, Brooklyn Center is all somewhat similar in price ranges. Those are the communities that we might be targeting for first-time home buyers.
Okay, and once we get down, we have a lot of listeners as well, like in Golden Valley and St. Louis Park.
Golden Valley, I've got a lot of friends who live in Golden Valley.
But it starts to get a lot more expensive once we get down into those areas, doesn't it? Plymouth, Hopkins.
Golden Valley has just totally done a 180 in terms of especially affordability. As well as, and a lot of people will be shocked to hear this, but a lot of areas of North Minneapolis are no longer within reach of a majority of working households, right? I mean, just because of the architecture, if you will, of the homes, as well as, again, they're closer to downtown. People that are downtown have played havoc with the law of supply and demand, and those houses are no longer affordable. And that's the and that dynamic will continue to grow in the communities that we're referring to, Crystal, Robbinsdale, New Hope, as they can no longer buy in Golden Valley, in North Minneapolis, in Hopkins, in St. Louis Park, that Crystal and Robbinsdale and Brooklyn Center all offer what those communities once did, and that is affordability with the benefits of being close to your work and cultural activities as well.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about living in the Twin Cities area, is that there are a lot of cultural opportunities. I know, and that's probably one reason Northeast is so expensive over Camden Way, and that they almost have like their own little subculture with the breweries that they have over there and all of that. That's attributed a lot, I think, to the increase in the home prices in that area.
Oh, absolutely. That at one time the Northeast was referred to as the new uptown.
Right.
But that's become unaffordable lately.
And, when you talk about the cultural opportunities, all of our communities in this area have those same opportunities. I mean, there's the breweries, the restaurants, all of it exists in Crystal, Robbinsdale, Brooklyn Center, New Hope, and they're going to benefit as well, and that's why organizations like the Crystal Business Association are actively involved in helping to promote the community and putting it on the map.
For those that maybe aren't as familiar with the Crystal Business Association, a lot of cities have business associations, or they work through a chamber of commerce or something like that. Could you explain a little bit about what they do? And because I know they're involved with your expo.
Yes, the Crystal Business Association is similar to a lot of area chamber of commerce. We come together to support one another. It's simply, we all do better when each of us do better, right? It's and that's another reason that we're all so interested in the overall health and vibrance of the community. I mean, let's face it, and Tom will tell you that a lot of these homes were originally purchased 20, 30, 40 years ago. And a lot of these people are no longer finding themselves either desiring to be or capable of being in a single-family home situation. And there's going to be just a changeover in the business associations, the chambers of commerce. All of the organizations are looking to make that positive, and it's in their best interest. So,
when Kim and I were developing this event, we first approached the Crystal Business Association. And again, those are typically managers and owners of all of the businesses within town, as you might think. Very prominent people that are there. And they eagerly jumped on it. They said it was a great idea to have this. Nobody else was doing it. When we approached the city of Crystal to be able to have this, they eagerly jumped on it. They wanted to, as Kim had said earlier, they recognize that Crystal is under the radar of most home buyers. They want to start featuring this, bring this to the top of people's priorities, start to thinking about it. So the Crystal Business Association was very instrumental on pushing this. And we've got, 40, 50, 60 members? I'm not even sure the membership of it.
And I think it's grown a bit, hasn't it? I mean, from just talking with members of the city council, I think Olga was telling us when she was on the program here that, like, the number of vacant commercial spots in Crystal has decreased by quite a bit. So there's job opportunities, and there's...
Well, that's something else that we hadn't talked about for Crystal, is the job opportunities. There may be people that are working already in Crystal, not only renting, but already working in Crystal, but living elsewhere. Maybe they're living in Plymouth, renting in Plymouth. Perhaps you would like to get a little bit closer to your job, and you don't have to have that 2-hour commute from Plymouth to St. Louis Park.
Possibly. Well, that's a good point about the job situation. I remember the Crystal Mall when that was pretty much empty about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now it's pretty much full now. I remember when it was just the post office, the I place, and then Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm not sure there's anything else in there.
Right.
So maybe it has. That could have been a function of a recession too. I mean, that may have been, but. Well,
it's not just the mall, though. I mean, across the street, across Bass Lake Road, I mean, those strip malls are pretty much full as well.
Yeah, it was pretty bad a while back.
And you guys probably, again, have more intimate knowledge about what the plans are for that area. Becker Park, as an example, they're going to start revising that starting in later this year.
Welcome Park as well. They're going to...
Well, I know that the Frolics is supposed to be at Welcome Park in 2019 or something.
Correct.
Because Becker Park's getting revitalized, I think. I don't know if that's the cart before the horse or what, but I don't know.
And I should also say that I'm a member of the Crystal Lions, who is participating in this. But the last couple of years, if you all know, that we brought in the antique car run. It starts at New London, goes to New Brighton. That stops at Crystal. In the past, it's been at Becker Park. We've already arranged for next year. It will be at the Crystal Community Center.
Okay.
For the last 2 years, we brought in the 50, 60 cars that they will be there too.
Oh, nice.
And you get to enjoy the cars, both sets of cars, and have a corn feed. So those are some of the features that Crystal offers.
And I played music at that one. So
That's true.
What can you say?
And people actually listen to you.
Yeah, I thought I saw
That's the first time.
I thought I saw somebody on a ukulele, and I was wondering who that was.
Oh, really? A ukulele and a kazoo, and I had cymbals between my knees. That's what it was.
Well, that's a one-man band.
Oh, my. Another thing that is really a benefit of Crystal is that there is a extremely high percentage of home ownership, right? There's not very much in terms of rental property, and what that really represents to new households or to any household that will take advantage of the opportunity to live in Crystal,
right,
is it helps to protect the value, but even more importantly, that when you have pride of home ownership in your community, it keeps the community, I can't think of a better word than nice, but nice kind of corny word, but that's me. But yeah, it's nicer when the vast majority of people in your community own their homes, period.
Right. You have an incentive to keep up your property. You have an incentive to know your neighbors. You feel like part of the neighborhood. I absolutely think that's true.
Well, and what you just said was important. I happen to know all the neighbors on my block, at least the good half of the block, and I at least wave to the other half. But that's what happens in Crystal, and we all kind of watch out for one another.
Yeah,
which is good.
And it's kind of an anomaly, I think, with some of the other areas around Crystal. I know New Hope is at a 51% rate of rentals. I mean, it's
up there. I know it's twice the Hennepin County average.
Yeah.
And it depends where you are in New Hope.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, if you're down by where they have Duck Days, I can't think of the park's name, but that area is very homeowner. But if you go north of, say, Cooper High School, it's tons of renting.
Well, then again, north of Bass Lake Road, I think, is a lot of home ownership as well.
Yeah,
up to the
but
Brooklyn
that's
Park
true.
border,
From there to
so,
62nd.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, a lot of those people have been there for many, many years. Crystal was developed in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And it was developed by a lot of returning vets and their families. My parents moved into Crystal in 1952. And that's one of the reasons they chose it.
So
it's affordability then, it's affordability now.
So do you guys, you mentioned the turnover, Tom. I mean, do you guys see that continuing? That's another thing that in 10 years, X amount of people are going to be, I don't want to say dying off or moving to a retirement home or retiring and moving somewhere, and there's a higher amount of, I don't know if it seems to have cycled a little bit already in Crystal. Is that something you also see? You see maybe more homes opening there than somewhere else as part of another selling point?
Well, and that's part of the objective, or part of the mission to attract budding households to Crystal, is to keep that balance, if you will. I mean, every community is based upon different age groups, if you will. We're just going to make an effort here to make sure that it remains vibrant, that it's not a dying community. And again, as you guys were just talking about the parks, Crystal has a beautiful park system.
Yeah.
And again, the school district is one of the most recognized for its arts program, and it's
Super 95.
it's just it's a great opportunity, and we're going to make sure that people are taking advantage of that opportunity, not only to their benefit, but to the benefit of the community as a whole.
Yeah, Cooper girls basketball just won state.
They did.
Yeah, I got a nephew at Armstrong.
But what you just said, too, or what both of you just said, how to put it gently, is it. And my parents, as I mentioned, moved into the neighborhood when they were in 1952. A lot of those people, unfortunately, both my parents have passed away. My mother passed away last September. Neighbors on both ends of my block passed away in March. So there will be a lot of transition in the next few years. And I think if you take a look at some of the city plans, that's the reason why they're revitalizing. Is that the correct word? Revitalizing Becker Park, Welcome Park. Yeah. They're getting away from one type of sports and into other type of sports to take advantage of the younger crowd. Mm-hmm. A more diverse crowd.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because it has cycled a lot. I remember when I was a kid, it seemed like there were kids everywhere. We were all at the ball fields. Yeah, that's what it seems like. That's where I was anyway, because Lions Park was a 5-block bike ride for me. And then it seemed like the kids left. Now it seems like the kids are back. That's just my observation. I mean, that's what it feels like anyhow.
Right.
But better use of the park is good, because I think the way parks were built with 2 tennis courts and a softball field maybe isn't where the kids they're playing soccer. That's even my nephews. I mean, that's what they like, soccer, and they play basketball,
soccer, lacrosse, for outside.
Yeah, it is different.
Absolutely. But I think that Crystal has made a lot of steps in the right direction, which I think makes for a community that people really want to live in. I mean, we look at the fact that they've gotten rid of train horns in the last couple of years, which has been that has been a huge benefit. I know that they have great organizations like Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, the VFW, the Light of Crystal. They just have the Crystal Ball, which
Crystal Lions.
Yeah, the Crystal Lions, which Tom already mentioned. Absolutely. Just had the Crystal Ball, which is
Molly and I were there.
Ton of people from the city go to that. And again, it's another source of pride for the community. Another thing, like we've talked about, is the City Code Task Force. So they've gotten rid of a bunch of outdated and overarching regulations in favor of something more slimmed down. It's the way the community wants it. They have made the community super involved in government. They have They have social media presence that tells you what they're talking about before they do it, and they tell you what they talked about after they've done something. So they're super involved in the community. Another thing that they did was get rid of point of sale inspections, and I know that that's something that has affected, Tom, you as a real estate agent, and people's willingness to maybe buy and sell a little differently.
Well, Tom, can you explain what that is first for people who don't know? And then,
certainly
it was
is.
repealed a couple of years ago, I know here.
Communities, there's several communities. St. Louis Park has one. City of Minneapolis, City of St. Paul, all has a point of sale or truth in housing report that has to be completed prior to putting your house on the market. Now, the cost varies between $150 and up. Brooklyn Park had one at one time. They wanted $300 some for it. I'm pretty pleased to say that I was instrumental in not only supporting but testifying before the Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center was considering it, and Crystal, who repealed it. They had it for many years. New Hope, I believe, still has it. So typically speaking, everybody wants to know what the condition of their house is before you buy. Mm-hmm. I can buy a Cross pen, and I can get a lifetime warranty, and I only pay $20 some bucks. What about your house? You want to know what condition. Does it leak? What's the condition of the roof, etc. The problem with this point of sale for most communities, the inspector is only there for 20, 30 minutes. And that came about 25 years ago when there were none. So it was good at that time because there were none. Now today, there are home inspections available, which has become almost routine. 20 years ago, less than 5% of the homes had a private home inspection. Today, it's probably 95%, 99%. Those inspectors go through a house and they're there for 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on the size of the house. They thoroughly go through it. So you have a written report afterwards in a 3-ring binder that, can you see this on radio, how thick this is?
Yeah, it's about 3 inches.
Yeah.
One of the big thing about a home inspection versus a truth in housing inspection or point of sale inspection is with the home inspection, the home inspector is compensated by the buyer and is working for the buyer. And when you think about it, it is the buyer who is most concerned with the condition of the house because they're going to be the ones that have to maintain it, right? And so regardless, even if there's a point of sale inspection, you're poorly advised if you don't have an inspector that is working for you, as opposed to managing it to city code or working for the seller or whatever. So that's really why point of sale or truth in housing has just kind of become antiquated. And when it originally came out, it was better than nothing, right? The term buyer beware still applied, but you had something, somewhat reliable to know about a property. But as Tom pointed out, the reason that the home inspectors are in a house so much longer now is that there's so many things that you need to be prepared for when you own a home. Right? It doesn't mean, and if something's wrong with the house, it doesn't mean that you don't buy it.
Right.
At least you're prepared, for what could or is likely to happen in the future.
Yeah, I remember coming back from a fishing trip and the water heater blew out.
That's fun.
My old basement. Yeah, flooding everywhere. I was standing there in my shorts trying to turn some knob that I don't think had been turned since I was in Little League. It was interesting. So got out the credit card, bought a new one.
But yeah, I mean those are a lot of great points why somebody might want to look in Crystal. But it's important to know what's good about a city. It's important to know what kind of housing stock they have. But I know, like, the first time I bought a house, I'm still in it, 19 years later. I didn't know what I was going to be able to afford or how to go about actually purchasing it. But this is something that would help people looking in Crystal as well, as far as to know how to finance or what they can do, what they can afford, right?
What are their options?
Right.
Yeah, what their options
And,
are.
you bring up a great point, because most lenders that have been around in a long while will start the process by you telling us what it is that you can afford, as opposed to me saying, well, here's how much you're approved for, right?
Right.
Because, again, everybody's circumstance is different. You, one of the most important things about owning a house is that you don't want it to become a sacrifice. You don't want to be working for your house. So just because I say that you can qualify for a $417,000 mortgage doesn't mean that you're comfortable paying a $3,000 a month house payment. And to magnify that point even further, and a lot of people just don't look at it this way. But if you're currently paying $1,500 a month rent, for example, and now you're going to go to a $3,000 a month house payment. Well, if you haven't been able to save $1,500 regularly into your savings account, even though I say you can afford it, what makes you realistically think that you can afford to double your housing expense when you haven't been, putting away that kind of money? So it really starts with your comfort level for a house payment when we talk about affordability.
The other thing about affordability is follow up what Kim had just said, is that simply if you've been paying rent $1,500, $2,000 a month, and all of a sudden you're switching to $3,000 a month, you're probably consuming a lot of your income towards that house. What about if you want to go out for a pizza? What about if your neighbors want to go out somewhere else and have a dinner some night? And all of a sudden you can't because you're paying twice what you were paying for rent.
And let me just offer one other converse viewpoint, if you will, if we could. So let's say, again, that $1,500 a month rent example. Now your housing expense goes down to $1,200 a month. That's an additional $300 a month that perhaps you could be contributing to your 401k. And if you're not getting a full advantage of an employer match on your 401k, that's like an extra $600 a month that you're making, right? Even if it's just an extra $300 a month that you're setting aside for vacations or fishing trips or camping expeditions or big game hunts, whatever it is.
New truck? Oh, sorry, did I say that?
Yeah, there we go. It's certainly worth the discussion, and it merits serious consideration.
So now let me ask you this. I mean, how many do you guys find that people who are paying, say, $1,500 a month, but they can own a home for $1,100? Are they unaware of it? Or, I mean, what's the barrier for somebody? Is it down payment? Is it they think they need $8,000 to put down? Or I mean, what stops somebody from saying? Because it makes sense. I could own for less money. Why don't I own?
Well, all the above.
Yeah, all of the above. And again, at $1,500 a month or $1,600 or $1,400, whatever the number is, right, that they're paying in rent, if their barrier is that they don't necessarily have down payment money, okay, obviously it's a sign. It's a sign that they're not living according to their means. And what a great solution if you're able to live within your means and own your home versus renting. And for people that view the money, the down payment, the closing costs, all of that as their barrier to owning a home, then they are unaware. They just haven't been informed. And that's what the state of Minnesota and the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency is going to show people at the Home, Life, and Family Expo, is that that's really where the state helps a lot of people to eliminate that barrier to home ownership.
And maybe Kim can explain that a little bit, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of the Minnesota Housing Finance and the benefits that's offered, and that what are they, maybe just take it up. What can they offer?
Well, it's so what most people utilize Minnesota Housing Finance Agency financing for is called entry cost assistance, and they'll provide up to $9,000 in entry cost assistance to help with down payment and or closing costs, okay, to be able to own a home. And they do that with a loan, and it's actually becomes the second mortgage on a house, or the second lien, if you will, but it's loaned to these households at 0% interest. It's not due until one of three things has happened. Either you no longer own the home or live in the home, excuse me. You either no longer live in the home, you pay off the mortgage, or 30 years have gone by. And so not only for even people that's their barrier, perhaps it's not a barrier, but if you actually qualify to take advantage of that assistance, and it is income-based, you have to, if you earn too much money, you're not considered to have a need. But if you are able to access that kind of money from the state of Minnesota and not have to pay interest on it or make payments on it, it's probably a good idea to take advantage of it.
One of the other advantages of Minnesota Housing Finance is that if you're going to buy, let me ask you, when you bought your house, did you know anything about buying a house?
Not really.
Did you know how to budget for a house, or your taxes, etc.?
No.
No, most
You
people
figured
don't.
it out in April.
So what's good about the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency is they offer classes for that you can attend to go through it. And
They actually require the class.
Kim is one of the instructors there.
That's good.
So it's just people either just a little ignorant, or I didn't know about it till an hour ago. So there you go.
So we'll be finding you a house this weekend?
I don't think that, but maybe sooner than I thought.
Should I call Molly now?
Now she's still at work.
So let's say that my name is like Andrew Richter, and I show up at this Home Life and Family Expo on the 28th of April at the Crystal Community Center from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I'll still be asleep.
What can I expect to find? What will my experience be like? I mean, this is all great stuff, and I think sells why somebody might want to live in Crystal. But what can I expect when I get there?
You can expect us.
Okay.
That we'll be there to answer your questions. So if you don't know about Minnesota Housing Finance, if you don't know how to qualify for a mortgage, if you don't know the first step to start looking for houses, if you don't know a realtor that would help you, assist you we'll be there to help you out. So whatever questions you have, we'll be there to answer for you. And there will be other vendors there too.
Yeah, there'll be other businesses that have nothing to do with housing per se, but they're all going to be locally owned businesses that would like to get to know you. They may not have a product or service that you'd benefit from, but if they do, the opportunity to be able to buy it locally is just good for our community as a whole.
So it's kind of like almost free education, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To get somebody started.
And you cover everything. I mean, from buying a home to financing a home to insuring a home, right?
We'll be there, and it's basically an introduction to us so that there will be a lot more questions that you may not have the time to ask, or you may not think about it. So what we would like to do is sit down with you at a later date and go over some of those questions to determine what you can afford, which Kim would do, and where houses are available, and just the process of purchasing, which I can walk you through.
And you really hit the nail on the head when you said to get an education. I mean, and several times we've mentioned that, these are things that people just don't know or aren't aware of, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But to learn about these opportunities, if it benefits your household, I can't understand why you wouldn't want the information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it is an intimidating thing for some, but these guys are here to ease the pain.
Yes.
Well, and that's true. It's been said that buying a house is probably the third or fourth most stressful thing that you could do in your life. Having children, getting married, is probably 1 and 2. Death is stressful, obviously. But
You get over death, though.
You do.
You got a lot of time to rest after that.
But it's our job to, in essence, hold your hand and walk you through the entire process. There's a lot of things you don't have to worry about. I have a postcard going out soon that it's a little bit of a joke, but it's true. There are 10 things that you should know about buying a house. Number 1 is to call Tom. I'll take care of the other 9.
And in this age of technology and and advertising, there's a lot of opportunity to think that you're being informed, but and for some people it works fine, but for a lot of others it's an opportunity to be misled. And remembering that money is the root of all evil, and we're talking about a lot of it when it comes to a home, and to the difference again in working locally with people that you can sit down to face with, and it is the experience that everybody that Tom and I work with is such that you can rest assured that you're being guided in the right direction and with your needs at the forefront versus ours.
And what Kim has just said about experiences too, both of us have 40 years of business, years in the business, me for real estate, Kim for mortgages. I was got into real estate when I still had brown hair, but Kim had hair at that time.
Well, back then hair was in style.
That's true. Now it's not such a big deal. So, but a nice thing about where this event is being held over at the Crystal Community Center, you're just 5 wood away from the downtown area, and you can check that out. And some of the businesses that are available there in Crystal. Also, you're basically on the edge of or across the street from some of the most typical Crystal residential communities. I mean, there are some that are more expensive than that in the city, and there are some that are a little less than that. But it's pretty typical of what you'll find in Crystal.
Absolutely.
And I would touch on that. Crystal, another unique thing is the neighborhoods, 14 distinct neighborhoods in Crystal. With kind of natural, I don't want to say dividing lines,
right.
But you have all these from Twin Oaks to the Skyway to Forest. They are, when I was out for National Night Out, I mean, you really did, community identity was much bigger than it was in other cities I've lived in. It's actually, it really is true.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, in Minneapolis, community is a pretty big deal, but Crystal is probably as close as I've seen come to that.
And I think in Minneapolis, it's a little more cultures sticking with each other. I think it's a little bit different than that in Crystal too. I don't know how to say that, but it's
everybody seems to play nice together.
Yeah,
which I love.
True, and it's different.
Yeah.
Now, if let me just ask one little weird question here. Crystal Real Estate. I mean, first I want to give you guys a chance to say where we can find you on the internet. You guys got sites that you could be at. I know you got business cards and things, but be handing those out, I assume, at this expo. If you're interested in things like buying a home in Crystal, where do you go to look at the homes? I mean, people just Google them. I don't know what they do. I'm just
and a lot of people actually do. I mean, and then the first thing that happens is they're bombarded, just literally bombarded with phone calls because their information is sold instantaneously, right?
Remind me not to do that. Then
Don't do that.
You don't have to.
And you'll you'll never meet anybody that's part of the transaction, or perhaps at least with the realtor, you'll meet somebody who works for somebody else who paid for your personal information off of the internet. But no, so this is when you're talking about the roof over the head of and Tom don't want me to use the word family, a household. When you're talking about the roof over the head of a family like yours or mine or his, whatever it is, it's too important of an issue. There's just too much involved to not be comfortable with, not have a level of trust with who it is that you're working with. The face-to-face thing. And yes, I'll throw my website out there right now. It's the number 4 and the word mortgageinfo.com. And you can apply online there. Again, 4mortgageinfo.com. My business page on Facebook is the same identity. Or you can simply just call me the old-fashioned way. Dial them digits, 612-578-3015. And I'll answer unless I'm sleeping. So, yeah, it's. But again, I'm glad you asked that question, because those internet leads are sold to multiple competing entities looking for your business.
And I totally agree. One of the reasons I asked is I'm old-fashioned face-to-face in that way. I don't buy anything. I hardly buy anything off the internet. I just don't. I like talking to people, like getting to know people. And I think that when you talk about home, the level of trust, this is such a big, for many people, this is the biggest purchase they'll ever make. So how can you go on the internet? But I get the feeling today's generation is, well, I want to know something, I Google it. That's what they do. And so, but I think they are missing out. Let Tom plug in all his stuff here.
Well, and that's absolutely true. The internet is a great vehicle to find information, but a lot of the information is conflicting. It's confusing. A lot of the information about houses that's on the internet, those houses might be obsolete, that they could have been off the market 3-4 years ago. And the number one complaint I get from people I work with, they say, why can't you find that house? It's listed up on XYZ website. And I have to tell them that that's been off the market. That's sold 4 years ago. So the only true way to find out what might be available is to get a hold of an experienced realtor. It's not only the houses that's listed on MLS, but I try to find out your priorities and find out, I know a lot of other realtors around town, so I can call them and say, what have you got coming up? I have a buyer. Here's their needs. Here's their wants. What have you got coming up that might match that? We can probably find that house for you before you even realize it. And also by doing that, it helps the seller that selling a house is a hassle. You got to put up with a lot of people, a lot of strangers coming through your house.
Yeah, at the same time you're trying to buy something else, probably.
Absolutely.
It's double the stress.
Yeah.
So this would be a good time for me, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
plug in your stuff.
So you can find me on the internet, as we just talked about, and it's simply Tom Slupske, and it's spelled SLUPSKE. So it's TomSlupske.results.net.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. And I imagine people can email you right at the site, or they
Email me right from the site, or
whatever.
tom.slupske@results.net, or again, the old-fashioned way of call or text at 612-720-2997.
Fantastic.
These guys want your business, folks. They just said their phone numbers on the air. Something I'll never do.
Yeah. Yeah. We like to hear from some people, not
Yeah,
everybody.
well,
not everybody.
So
We can deal with the email.
here's how that goes. After 41 years in business, no one, not a single person, has ever punched me in the nose over the phone. I will talk to anybody on the phone. So,
Oh boy.
Good.
Oh, so Obviously, that's how people can get in touch with you directly. The other way is by coming directly to the Home Life and Family Expo on the 28th of April at the Crystal Community Center.
Absolutely.
In between 9 a.m. 3 p.m. Is there any kind of way for people to circle back on the internet and find out more about that?
We should have
social
some
media.
information coming up within the next week or so that will directly point you to the event itself.
And it is a Facebook event, and that's already out there. It's under Home Life Family Expo on Facebook.
Oh,
so
perfect.
Under events. So
I like
and
it.
you don't have to have reservations. Show up. If you want to sleep till 9:01, you can come later.
I got Twins tickets the 27th, so we'll
Well,
see.
that's the next day. I think you're
No, that's
right,
the night
so-
before, right?
Or yeah,
Friday
that's the night
night
before.
before.
So
Okay.
the
Hopefully
what I
it'll be
mean
over
is the
40
expo's the
degrees
next day.
outside.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Anything we missed that you guys want to cover, or did we get it all in there?
I am so impressed. You guys do a great job here, and I just want to thank you for having us on.
Well,
Cool.
it's our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
And I think Kim mentioned it earlier, and I want to repeat it. We have to do a good job for our clients because our reputation is on each other's back. If he doesn't do a good job, it reflects on me and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So we have to work together to do a good job for you, the consumer.
Absolutely, that's how we feel, and why every podcast is better than the last.
That's right. I mean, I've got you're on my back the entire time. It's
But
great.
in the history of your podcast, you've got to admit this has been the best.
Absolutely,
They only get better.
that's
we-
it.
I think definitely show 58, but in 57,
Yeah,
You might go downhill from here. You got to watch
it's
out.
possible.
You got to invite us back.
nothing infinitely keeps going up and up and up. I mean, nothing
Right.
does that.
Well, and there may be opportunity for that. I mean, as you guys said, you may be looking to do this in the future in Robbinsdale, New Hope, Brooklyn Center, wherever they'll have you. So
We'll keep growing.
this may be a trend. Look out for it, folks.
The event planner has already told us he wants to book the Minneapolis Convention Center in 5 years.
Wow. Well, there's a goal.
Holy smoke.
There's a goal. Maybe we'll have to have a booth. We can podcast live from the expo.
From the
Done.
and I'll come from the house that Tom and Kim set up.
That's
for,
right.
for
There
my
we
wife
go.
and I.
There we go. I see how
Come there
it's all
as
working. This is
I'll
good.
come there as somebody who can talk about how great of a job they do firsthand.
Absolutely. So, Tom Slepsky and Kim Edwards, thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate being invited. Thank you.
Absolutely. Andrew, it's been good.
It has, and as always, when the shows end, I have nothing more to say. You know,
Good.
it's
Then
just-
then we know that we've done our job.
We
If
know
you're
we've-
speechless,
we know
we're-
we've said everything.
That's true. If you guys want to find us, I know we've thrown a bunch of websites and phone numbers and fax numbers at you already, but you can find us at COMMsolutionsMN.com. That's COMMsolutionsMN.com. From there, you can either email us or get in touch with us via many of our social media accounts. We're out there, COMM Solutions MN, wherever you look for us. And this podcast, share it widely. If you know people looking in the Crystal area to buy a home or looking for a home and not sure where they want to get a house yet, have them come out and check out Crystal because it is a good area. It's one of the two top local governments that I know of in the entire state of Minnesota, as well as just it's a beautiful city with a lot of opportunity. So with that said, if you know what's going on in your area and you got something to tell us, get a hold of us. We'll be more than happy to reach out to you. You want us to come and speak out in your area, we'll do that as well. So with that, folks, you've heard our story. We love you, Minnesota. Now it's your turn to get to work.